Welcome back to the newsshooter.com live show at NAB 2013 at the Teradek booth. And today we've got a great little chat lined up for you with Ian from G Technology and Nino Leitner, fantastic DP from Europe apparently. And then on the end we've got Scott, who's actually not on the panel, but he's just doing a little bit of work, and we'll talk about what he's doing in a minute. So welcome everybody. Today's chat is going to be about hard drives. You're glad to know it's not about, I don't know, walking sticks or something like that. No, it is about hard drives. And we are going to discuss a little bit about how users should look after their hard drives, how do they make sure they keep their data safe, and then we're going to look at some of the newer technology for working really quickly with these big ass files that are being generated by these new 2K, 4K, 18K, 32K cameras that are all over the show floor. Nino's already got the 32K camera.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
I only do wides and crop in now.
So Ian, you are a G-Tech expert. How long have you been with the company?
Pretty much since day one. So this is 9 years with the organization. 9th NAB. It's amazing.
And G-Tech are basically, I don't know, the brand leader in photo and video drive storage, right? I mean, you go to any sort of high-end studio, you tend to see these silver cases. People recognize them; they're instantly recognizable.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What was the deal? I mean.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was amazing. So you go back into 2004, and I like to set it up in context, You still had like the Razr was your phone, and iPods didn't even have a color screen yet. And put it into historical context, I think Apple stock was like $11, right? So it was a while ago. And back then, there was a need in the industry. Nobody was creating external desktop storage, specifically for the content creation professional. And at the time, you couldn't get a drive that would do sustained, and that's the critical portion, right? A sustained dual stream SD in real time. Now, there was companies that would say, yeah, we can do it. You plug it in, the first 5% of the drive, everything would be fine. All of a sudden, 3 or 4 minutes in, you start dropping frames, and there goes your entire workflow, right? So we really set out on a very specific agenda. Be the most reliable, stylish. We know that creative people want it to look good in the studio.
Sure.
And performance-enhanced drive for the content creation professional. And we started off with the G-RAID, and then from there we just expanded the portfolio, making sure that in all times it passed, minimum dual stream tests sustained throughout the entire enclosure.
And then you've changed over the years. You've gone with all the latest interfaces.
Yep.
So if you had USB, FireWire from the start, I guess.
Yeah.
Different brand types of FireWire, 400, 800.
800, yeah.
And now we're on to Thunderbolt, the latest technology, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But that's why you know so much about hard drives. So I'm going to ask you some really simple, stupid questions, which I'm sure all of us have to deal with, and I guess we all think we know, but
Yep.
You're the expert, so I'm going to ask you anyway, and hopefully you can confirm this.
Okay.
How do you look after something and make it last? How do you make a hard drive last and protect your photos or your videos over a long period of time?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into it, right? The first thing we like to tell people is, look, you don't want the drive to sit stagnant. You pay good money for it. You want to power it up every once in a while. So that's going to elongate the lifespan of the hard drive.
How often is once in a while?
There's no specific criteria, etc. As long as you can turn it on and try and use it every couple of months, that's going to, increase the longevity of the hard drive specifically.
And what happens if you don't? What happens if I've got a bunch of drives? I've probably got a bunch of drives lying in a cupboard somewhere with data from 2002 or something. If I haven't spun that drive up in two years, what's the risk? What can go wrong?
Well, if you think about it, it's kind of like a car. If you just leave it in your garage for a couple of years, everything gets stagnant, settles, and all of a sudden the car has a hard time starting. It's going to be the same thing with hard drives. They're meant to rotate. They're meant to spin up. They've got engines inside of them. And especially when you get into something that's as high as performance as storage, you want to make sure that it's being used.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt though, but is it true that it's better to store them like lying flat instead of horizontally, because otherwise the the
platters,
read write
and
head
everything.
just hangs down. I heard that from somebody else, but I'm not sure if it's.
So the technology's gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. So the whole thing with the heads being read, HGSE actually invented the technology where we can park the heads.
Okay.
So that's not as big of an issue anymore.
But with old hard drives, it's a better idea to actually,
Some of the really old ones, yeah.
Can I just stop you right there in case anybody doesn't actually know? Inside one of these hard drives is a spinning platter.
Yeah,
which
so
contains the
basically,
data.
it's like an old record player, right? So you have these platters, or think of them like little records, and then you've got a head which skims over the platter, okay, to read the data. Now, I can get into a lot of the different specifics, right? But that's why when I was saying before, some storage companies give you these outlandish claims on how fast they can go. So this is kind of a tip for when you're buying something, what you want to look for, right? Physics, the outside of the platter is going to be spinning faster than the inside. So when the head's reading the outside, it's going much quicker, you're going to be able to get a lot more data through. The issue is, for some lower performing solutions, as that head moves towards the center, you're going to lose a ton of performance. So I don't know if you remember, 8-10 years ago, once you hit 70-80% of the hard drive,
It would go very
it
slow.
plummeted, right?
Yeah.
Which is why back in 2004 we said, well, wait, for us, we want to be able to fill up that drive, and we had a proprietary test where we simulated filling up the drive in its entirety and made sure that we can still play back 2 streams of uncompressed SD.
And you actually ended up going with one particular drive manufacturer.
That's right.
Because you did these tests, and and you continue to do these tests, and you're pretty confident. Are you allowed to say who that is, or is that?
Yeah, well, from day one, it was a private company. We exclusively used Hitachi hard drives. So we tested everything. GTEC's mandate is always to provide the content creation professional with cutting edge technology. It's got to meet our minimum specs. Truthfully, there's a bunch of products we would have loved to have, but I was really proud of the team. We didn't release them because it didn't perform to our expectations. So we've been fortunate. Eventually we got bought a couple times, and then Hitachi bought us out. And we've always used that hard drive.
Okay. And then, if you're going to use a product, any of these products like this, I'm actually going to ask Nino, why not just go down to the mall and pick up something, has a shiny silver box like this, looks exactly the same. Well, not exactly, so it doesn't have the nice G on it, but looks similar. Why would you as a professional not do that?
Well, first of all, there's a difference in performance, and I've used, over the years, all sorts of hard drive. I also have a cupboard full of hard drives, and in the early years, you experimented more with different brands, and as you said, they weren't as reliable. And I had more hard drive failures in the early 2000s than I had over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
But that first of all, there's how fast are they, and how fast are they, on the box, and how fast are they actually when you use them. Yeah. And there's a big difference. But that's not everything. And I before I started using GTEC drives some years ago, I literally went through reviews and tried to find the best one. But still, you had failures every now and then,
Sure.
because it's a mechanical drive.
And actually, let's be clear, even the best hard drive in the world, if you take 1,000 of them and test them all and run them forever, there will be a percentage failure rate. Correct?
Yeah.
So we can perhaps talk a little bit later about.
Yeah, look, I tell people anything spinning at 7,200 RPM,
Yeah.
there's the possibility.
Yeah.
Now, from a G technology standpoint, our job is to minimize that as much as possible, which is why we stand by the fact, for example, we stand by all of our units. We've never wavered from this 3-year warranty, and we've got the lowest, what we call mean time to failure, out of any external enclosure on the industry.
Can you say that in English?
So in other words, ours last a lot longer, and we spend a lot of time and money making sure that the likelihood of failure is far below anybody else's.
There were some external hard drives from other manufacturers that I had that really pissed me off when I had I don't say the brand, but I bought one, and I knew that the enclosure had some problem with electricity, so I took out the drive, and assuming that can't be a problem, put it in another enclosure that actually killed the hard drive. And I found that online that it's like a common problem, that manufacturer built their hard drives into their cases in a way that when you put it into like a random enclosure that you can buy on Amazon, it will fail. And this is something that you have to tell your clients when you do something like that. And there were like thousands of people complaining about this, and this is something you just can't do.
Interesting you mentioned clients, because another interesting thing is client delivery is really important. Certainly in my business, you're working with some reasonably large companies, and you have to deliver footage. If you send it to them on a no-name drive and it goes wrong, you don't look good. You don't look good at all. Whereas if you ship something, maybe not this, but something, one of your regular G-Tech drives that you might get from the Apple store, you look like it looks right.
It's also, I trust them more because, like in the rates, there's server grade drives in there. They are much more expensive if you buy them, of course, but they are more reliable. And I don't have a good feeling, having like 2.5-inch drives running 24/7, but they are not made for that. I know a lot of people who do that, and I keep telling them, well, back your stuff up on 3.5-inch drives. I personally have a lot of, bad memories of 2.5-inch drives failing much more often than 3.5-inch, because when you put them under a lot of strain permanently.
Is that right? Is there a statistically higher failure rate for smaller drives than bigger ones?
No, not necessarily. I think that what happens in the industry is people have a very long memory when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody ever thinks about their data.
You remember the disaster
until it's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, the industry in general, the ability to make a better hard drive is unbelievable, right? Now, where I think that we excel, especially again with the hard drives we use, is not only the reliability but the performance as well. So, 10, 15 years ago, there were some issues. It was still a new industry. Hard drives, believe it or not, hadn't been around that long. But they've gotten a lot better recently. So now, I think what you're alluding to is we do have solutions like in our 4-bay. There's stuff coming out, we can't comment on yet, that's called an enterprise class drive. And they'll put a bunch of technology in that drive. I don't have one here, but like I said, the 4-bay, and this is a differentiator for us, it's got stuff like anti-vibration.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, we did actually come over to the booth earlier in the week and we recorded the video. So if you want to see that, just head over on our site, Google G-Tech and newshooter.com. That should pop right up. Okay, Ashkin. So now we're talking about the product.
Yeah.
What's the latest and greatest? NAB is full of new gear from you guys. What have you got?
All right, so we got a couple things. We'll start with these guys over here. So, and I'll just slide up a bit. The first solution, and this one's kind of like an ecosystem, right? So the first solution we have is called the Evolution series. So, we're talking about hard drives specifically, and we'll just pull the first guy out. So it's the first component, okay? G Drive EV. Now, you've seen a 2.5-inch drive before. It's not like this is new. But what's revolutionary is industry standard data rate out of this is about 110 megs per second.
Wow.
Okay. We're getting 136 out of what we're calling this as a media cartridge.
Okay.
So I try and use a real world example. So 15 minutes of 2K footage, about 190 gig. So industry standard, that takes about a half an hour to transfer. We'll give you a 25% increase. This will do it in 26 or 24 minutes. Okay.
Wow.
Now, as part of the ecosystem, you see that it slides in to the second part of the solution, the G-Dock. All right. So JBOD, which means you can access them independently. RAID 1, which means whatever's on one drive is automatically copied on the other, so you've got what we call a mirror. Then, of course, RAID 0, where both drives are working together strictly for speed. So you put two of them together, and this solution now has 250 megs per second. So you take that 2K file of 15 minutes, you cut that down to about 12 minutes of transfer time.
And thanks to Thunderbolt, you actually have no problem getting that in and out of your computer in that sort of time.
Correct. Now, so there's a couple different ways to explain that. We can elaborate on that, right? But I'll go through the progression, and then I'll give you some of the extra bells and whistles.
Sure.
So we talk about scalability within the industry, because today you still got people doing SD, HD. All of a sudden they need, uncompressed HD 444. Then they get into, 2K, 4K, etc. We designed it to be scalable. So if we put these guys side by side, I don't know if the camera can see this.
I think if we do them
like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Good.
So these two.
So this is called the EV Plus. So as you can see, it's a tiny little bit bigger than the EV. This guy will give you 250 megs per second on its own.
Just to show you people right there. So that's these. So on its
it's
own,
an industry first
this on its own with nothing
By-
else
by itself, 250 megs per second.
on the USB 3.
Great, good segue.
Oh.
So what's happening is, you'll notice we got the extra port. So again, another industry first for G-Tech, and it's one that it's like that aha moment for people. It's the only ecosystem where when you eject the media cartridge, you can still access all of that data over the USB 3. Over the SATA, you put it into the enclosure, and again, it's not a different enclosure. There's the extra little door on top. You can put that into the same enclosure, and with 2 EV+, now you've got 500 megs per second, which means your 2K file is now transferred in 6 minutes. And that's important for a lot of people, because you think about getting your data from the camera. How often you pay somebody to sit there just to copy the data. And only when it's done copying can you finally use that data in your production
I
workflow.
don't normally pay somebody. It's me. I have to sit there for hours and hours and hours
See?
with a coffee. And
So you want to ask yourself, what's your time worth?
What's
right?
my time worth? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
everybody knows that. I mean, after a shoot, you're happy you're done, everything is in the can, and you sit there until 1 in the morning copying
data.
stuff. It sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really makes a difference.
I'm going to ask Scott. Scott, you've been copying data all week. I know, and sadly, you've been using you're using G-Tech, but you've been using you haven't been using the new drives because they're not out.
Right.
Would you like to use this?
Yeah, absolutely. It would save a lot of time. And we're on the floor running around. We're doing 10, 15 spots a day. And we're squeezing editing time into the morning, into the evening, back at the hotel.
That's amazing.
We don't want to be up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. When we
You
can
still
be
are,
out.
though.
and we are, because of slow drives.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of it, is bringing in this big footage. It takes a lot of time. And that's, if we could save time there, that would cut our editing time down significantly.
And I mean, that's where a lot of these G-Tech products come from, right?
Yeah.
So we're in Hollywood. So for us, it's easy. We go talk to the producers, the DPs, the audio guys, the video guys, the color guys, the graphic guys, and they all give us the same feedback. And we started noticing these trends, which is why we've got these new solutions, right? So the other bell and whistle that I'll talk about, because he mentioned Thunderbolt. So Thunderbolt has this great ability. So we've got dual ports, which means we can do what's called daisy chaining. So let's say you have up to 6 of these particular enclosures together. What I love about this is, from one master, 6 of these daisy chain, you're now accessing 12 independent drives. So you take your footage, you copy it once, it hits all 12 drives, and then at the end of the copy, you're saying, okay, producer, you get one. The other producer gets one. The video editor gets one. Everybody gets their copy, and because we have the ability of pulling the data from the USB 3, they can get to it quickly and start using it right away.
And what type of increase in copying time would you have if you were daisy chaining X number of drives on Thunderbolt?
Yeah, so again, you want to do the calculation of Thunderbolt itself is going to have a certain amount of throughput, but some systems will have 2 ports on Thunderbolt, so you can put like 3 drives on one chain, 3 drives on another chain, but you want to do the math.
The latest MacBook Pros, I think, have 2.
It's about a gig.
They have 2 Thunderbolt ports.
2 Thunderbolt ports, that's right, and you can get it per lane. So, 2 enclosures, it's a good question. So 2 enclosures on 1 lane with the EV+,
Yep.
you're going to just about saturate the Thunderbolt bus. So 500 megs per second each.
Okay,
Right.
but they'll be running close to full throttle though.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, pretty impressive.
Okay. So, all right, so that's that one. So again, the purpose of the G-Dock is just scalability throughout the workflow, right? And depending on which project you're working on, timeline, etc., you get the media cartridge you want, and just to throw it out there, we thought things through. So there are people that came up to us and said, we want to buy 10 packs. So we're working on that kind of thing. You can label it right on the drive without affecting the enclosure, because aesthetically, people want to keep it nice and pristine. So we offer the ability to just put in a label which won't affect inserting the mini cartridge.
Yeah, these things are great. I mean, they're quite tough as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're running out of time, but you've got one more product, right?
Wow, all right, so I'll do this quick. So this guy's also raising a lot of eyebrows. So imagine the same thing, 4K workflow. 15 minutes of 4K is just under 800 gig. Typical transfer time on a desktop solution, it's going to be 1 hour and 50 minutes. Okay. We're giving 2 and 4 terabyte solution. I'll work with the 4 terabyte example. 4 terabytes at 480 meg per second on a desktop drive. Now most people ask, well, wait a minute, you've got to be using SSD. To get that kind of performance and capacity over SSD, For a reasonable 500 gig SSD drive, you need about 8 of them.
Yep.
It's what, $5,000-$6,000? 4 terabytes at 480 meg per second for $849.
Okay.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
We've also got a 2 terabyte solution at $699. And
How many actual physical drives are inside one of these?
we've got some secret sauce. So it's intellectual property. We're not talking about that right now. But we have some very, very smart engineers. And again, being owned by the hard drive
They're all inside here, right? The smart
Pardon me?
engineers, they come in the box.
Oh, yeah,
They're inside this box somewhere.
Yeah, if you knock on it 3 times, you can talk to them.
Yeah, okay.
But they're busy working and increasing the performance, right? So, but the other thing I want to add to this is, again, it's Thunderbolt, which means you can daisy chain it. And this is where things get really interesting when you start thinking about where we're going, re-engaging in the content professional workspace. Daisy chain 2 of these, and you've saturated the Thunderbolt bus. So you're getting on that, maximum throughput with 2 of these. Again, do that on SSD. If you could find an enclosure that can handle it, you're talking $8-10 grand. 2 of these, $1,700-$1,800. You've saturated the bus. You're starting to get to that line where a lot of these throughputs become a lot easier.
Okay, great. Well, I think we could talk about this for much longer. Sadly, we're out of time. But if you want to learn more about these products, where can people go?
So the website's www.g-technology.com.
Okay, and price and availability will be announced on there. Some of these aren't going to have prices.
Yeah, so pricing's been done. The G-Dock with 2 1 terabyte drives, $749. Additional media cartridges, the EV 1 terabyte's $199. 500 gig.
The smaller one is $199.
Yeah, so one of these is $199. A 500 gig, $149. A 1 terabyte EV Plus is $349. And then these go from $699 and $749.
And to me, this is like the automatic Best Buy go-to product. I mean, they're all great, but this is standout. I mean, this is
it's pretty amazing speed.
Amazing speed.
Yeah.
Really nice and solid. Rugged and $349. Yeah, okay. Show me to the store. Okay.